definitely ran.
No, I didn't.
You waved at me.
I run towards gunfire, but I don't run.
Was there gunfire?
Yeah.
There was?
If I run, it's towards gunfire.
No, you weren't running, literally.
I was in a car.
But you waved at me, and then I was walking towards you, and you drove away. That was so rude.
Well, I didn't know you wanted to talk to me.
I was walking right towards you.
That doesn't mean anything. People walk towards me all the time.
You know, first of all, I don't have any good video of you in the daytime. So just take a second, okay? Just take a second. And now you're in the sun. Okay, so I'm going to stand over here. But I have to say, your nighttime replacements lack a little to be desired. Dirty cops. Dirty thug cops.
No.
Sergeant Roby is as dirty as they come. Okay? And his crew.
I'm so sorry you
and
feel
his little
that way.
crew, they are on my bad side big time.
Why? Why is
not
that?
because they did anything to me, but because of what I've seen them do. They are out of control. They are nothing like your crew, you know, or Rayleigh's crew. Okay, I've caught them, 4 of them having a girl surrounded against a bridge for no reason. In the middle of the night, right? That bridge down there, not that one. It looked really bad. They didn't even write her a ticket. As soon as I got there, they let her go. But they had her surrounded.
Did you ask him what it was for?
Yeah, he said, "Is there an emergency?" See, he doesn't care. See, you know, I asked him.
I'm listening.
You know, and that wasn't the only thing. I witnessed them and like 8 others arrest the wrong person on purpose.
What do you mean by arrest the wrong person on purpose?
Well, okay, there was an incident at HEB where a girl had been hit, and she had a black eye, and she was with her boyfriend. Okay, and now, and I got all this on film, right? Not the attack, but I got her telling them who it was, and that it was her brother that did it. And then you know, her and her boyfriend are right there, right? And they went and talked to. Are you gonna let me tell the story?
Did they put the guy in the? Okay, all right, I'm listening.
Yeah.
Right.
So then they went. Well, supposedly, according to the girl, which I ran into later, she told me later that they went and talked to her brother and her dad said no, it was her boyfriend that did it. Well, okay, so now we have conflicting stories, right? But the witness, the supposed victim, is saying it was somebody else, right? She's saying it was her brother, okay? And she's right there with her boyfriend, you know? And they didn't separate the two for a long time, right? So now, if you think it's him, you're going to separate them right away. I mean, that's neither here nor there.
David,
that's just
David,
what I know. You weren't there. I'm telling you the story. I'm not expecting you to, you know, not defend your fellow gang members. I know you're going to do that, but that's why I say you're a gang, right?
Gang members.
Okay, but that's why I say that
Public service.
is because you, by law, are required to
Enforce
back up your fellow officers. You can't go and say something against them. You weren't there. You can't do it. It's against the law. And it's definitely against your policy. Right? And that's a gang thing. You know, all gangs make those rules. Right? But when your gang makes the rules, it's actually a law.
Do you know for a fact that all gangs make those rules?
It's one of the requirements of a gang.
Do you know the difference between the Bloods and the Crips?
Well, they claim a different color, but the definitions of a gang is what I'm going off.
Requirements are.
So requirements of a gang?
You can't say that they're all the same because you haven't been a
They
member
all
of the
do.
Bloods. You haven't been a member of the Crips.
No, you're right. I've never been a part of a gang.
So how would you know that?
Well, I'm going
a
by
gang?
the actual definition of what
Mr. David, we talked about
what the law is of being a gang. What is required to prosecute somebody?
About facts. We talked about facts.
The facts are of a gang. 1, okay, you have to have structure. Okay, so you have lieutenants, you have officers, you have sergeants. That's structure. You have to have initiation. So your training, you know, is initiation. But also, I mean, there's an actual initiation to be police officers. I mean, but those are just two things. Then you have to have you have to use intimidation and you know that, but the real main, you have to have an insignia. You don't have to, but most gangs have an insignia, like you have that patch, you know. You have territory, and you know, you're possessive of your territory.
Jurisdiction.
Well, you can call it jurisdiction,
Yeah,
but it's
jurisdiction.
territory, right? It's the same thing. And but the main thing is that when crimes are committed, they're committed as a group.
Yeah.
And that is the true definition of a gang. That's the kicker right there, is that you have to commit crimes as a group. And you know, I'm not trying to prove that you're a gang member right now, but what I'm saying is that let's get back to this incident, okay? So they ended up arresting him, okay? And
The boyfriend.
yeah,
Correct.
with no evidence, right? And the witness saying, the victim saying it wasn't
Did you
him.
talk to the boyfriend?
I've talked to both of them since, and he ended up being released with no charges 2 weeks later and never even saw a judge after 2 weeks in jail. But
He never saw a magistrate.
he never even saw a magistrate.
So how was he released?
They let him go after 2 weeks with no charges. I find that a little hard to believe that he never saw a judge, but you know, that's neither here nor there, because what I saw was no evidence, right? None. Like, I mean, no damage to him, like no, you know, nothing on his hands or anything. And the victim is the one
Maybe
that
he didn't
matters.
hit her with his hands. Maybe he used a phone book.
No, that's no. I could
I
tell
agree.
by the bruise on this side. This wasn't a phone book. This was a.
I'm just saying.
Right, you weren't there, but this was a straight fist to the eye.
I had a dad
Yeah.
that beat my mom.
Sure.
Yeah.
No,
you know,
I mean,
my dad would use sometimes. He use a phone book on my mom,
but this isn't
Because you
evidence.
can't.
This is guessing.
and he would always strike her where her hair was.
But we're guessing,
No, I'm not
right?
guessing.
I mean, you are, because you definitely weren't there. I was there, not when it happened,
Hold on a
but
second.
I was there.
I'm listening to you.
Just
Right.
making sure we're still rolling.
Still rolling?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
you know, the what I really don't like is that on all the stops I've recorded you on,
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen you engage in what I would call gang activity, right? Where you call out a bunch of your fellow officers and you all surround somebody. Right
Just-
now, I've seen you call backup, but not like an overkill, right? Like in all the stops, I've only seen you call backup once. That was on the one that you arrested that girl. And, you know, he just, Jackson, you know, and he just stood there with her while you ran her name and did your thing, you know, and that's appropriate amount of force, right? But every single situation I've seen now that that there's a new night crew,
Mm-hmm.
they've got everyone there for anything, you know, and it's too much. That's gang activity right there, and none of them know 3802, which upsets me, and they don't care, right? They don't care. Sergeant Roby doesn't care, you know, that they don't know it. They think that you just have to be detained in order to require an ID.
What's that?
Texas Penal Code 3802.
Yeah, I know, but what you just said something. What do you mean? You said they don't.
They think that you only have to be detained, not you, but a person only has to be detained in order to be required to identify themselves.
It also depends on reasonable suspicion. You know,
Officer
is there an
Fox, what does
investigation?
3802 say?
Why are we asking me now?
Well, because you clearly are trying to say it's something else. It's very clear. 3802 says a person must give their name, birth date, and address if they have been lawfully arrested.
Are you going to quote that?
That's a quote.
I've done this to you once before.
You have
I
a
have.
different version of the Constitution.
No, I don't. No, I don't.
Yeah, you do.
That's
There
the one
are different versions.
No, that's the one that's on the wall.
Well, mine's
I want I'm just. If you're gonna go,
Yeah, and then I'll go to
quotes. I'm gonna
and
go
then
by
I'll
the
go
book.
to Part B,
I'm
3802
gonna go by the
Texas
book.
Penal Code. Good, get the
I'm gonna
book
go by the
out.
book,
I
yes.
love that. No, you're the only officer that's ever pulled out a Constitution on me, and I had the
We
spirit
do.
of it, even by your
David,
version.
it's because I respect you. And
But
I
I've
understand
looked
that
up that Constitution again, and,
Okay.
and it says exactly what I said.
All right.
You know, so there are more than one version of the Constitution. That's not.
I don't agree with that.
No, there are. It's been amended. It's been changed. There's an original version.
But they voted
there's-
on that. They've
Yes, you're right. You're
That's
right.
what they call ratification.
Yeah, no, I know, but I mean, we could
Come
both be
on,
looking
man.
at different
I'm just
ones,
telling you
but
the
the
publication
spirit
that
is
I
the
have.
same. Yeah.
The publication that I have is the same as the Constitution after it was ratified.
Yeah.
All the amendments, everything.
Yeah, and
So-
nothing I said about that was wrong. It was, some words were different.
Well, I'm
but
just saying. I said, are you quoting
the
this?
spirit was the same
Okay.
in the
I'll read-
Constitution. I mean, let's
I'll
be
read it.
clear about that, though. Right? I didn't get the quote right, but the spirit was the same.
Okay. Now we're
Can we
looking
agree
at
on that?
failure to ID.
Can we
Failure
agree
to
on
ID.
that? Because we're talking about the 14th Amendment,
Okay.
right?
Well, we
3802,
were talking
yeah.
Okay, 3802. Failure to identify. A person commits an offense if he intentionally refuses to give his name, residence, address, or date of birth to a peace officer who has lawfully arrested the person and requested the information.
Okay.
Okay, that's
So-
hold on. That's
So let's stay with
Paragraph
Part A.
A.
Let's stay with Part A.
paragraph. Hold on a second.
I
But
know Part B is talking
a
about
person commits
if-
offense if
if
he intentionally gives a
the
false
wrong-
or fictitious,
yeah.
fictitious name,
If
address,
he's a
or date of
witness.
birth to a peace officer who has lawfully arrested the person, lawfully detained the person.
That's if he gives a fictitious name. He can't lie. It doesn't say you have
And
to
then three,
give the
requested
name
the information
if
from
for a
person the
witness.
peace officer has good cause to believe is a witness to a criminal offense.
Yes.
It's
okay.
only a Class C misdemeanor.
Yes, but let's look at these words very carefully. Okay. A person commits
An offense if he intentionally refuses to give his name, residence, address, date of birth to a peace officer who has lawfully
who
arrested the
has
person.
lawfully arrested. Okay,
and
so you
requested the
have to give a
information.
name, birth date, and address if you've been lawfully arrested.
Yes.
Okay, and then Part B. A person commits an offense if he intentionally gives a false or fictitious name. So if you lie and, you know, I'm like, I'm Rick James, bitch, right?
Or
And you've detained me.
refuses to ID.
It doesn't say that. Open it back up.
You can articulate that though.
It doesn't say that. It does not say that. The only time is if you refuse and you've been lawfully arrested. If you give a fictitious name when you've been detained or you're a witness, that is an offense.
But an omission of fact is a lie.
No, an omission of fact. You do not have to answer questions. The Fifth Amendment and the First Amendment still
That's,
apply at
you
all
know,
times.
Yeah, that's not that's helping you not incriminate or self-incriminate yourself.
That's right. So
So-
you don't have to give a name unless you've been lawfully arrested. That's Part A. Part B is you cannot give a false or fictitious name or birth date if you've been detained. I can pick that up at any
Yeah, you
time.
should pick
Don't
that
worry
up.
about it.
How
But I
about
wanted to get it out of your face.
How about you pick that up right now, sir?
Oh, stop it.
Or we can cut you a citation for littering.
No, it's not littering unless I've walked away. And you put your hands on me in there too. Don't ever do that again.
Oh, I was just tapping you to say
I
hello.
know, I'm just saying since you're calling out a cigarette butt. So can we agree that you have to be arrested in order to be required to give a name? This is very important.
With the letter of the law. So if you're under arrest, yeah, you have to ID.
It says lawfully arrested,
Lawfully
specifically.
arrested.
That's not the same as legally
But
arrested.
detained is just a temporary detention. You have to tell that person that right now you're detained to the course of the investigation.
Yes, but you don't have to give a name while you're doing your investigation. And now it specifies lawful arrest, and why that's a big deal is
Let's go
because
back to my coffee.
Sure. Oh yeah, coffee is important. Now, a lot of times police officers like to have their cake and eat it too. And so here's what I'm talking about. Let me hear me out on this. Okay.
Yes, sir.
They'll put somebody in cuffs. They'll tell them they're arrested.
Yeah.
And then they'll take them to the station and they'll hold them. But then they'll release them without booking them. And they'll later say, oh, they weren't arrested, they were just detained, right? And that's the difference between being, now, that person can think of themselves as being under arrest, even if they're just being detained. They can think of themselves as being under arrest because they're not free to leave. But they're not lawfully under arrest until they're being booked.
Well,
and that's the key.
The whole purpose of the detention is to conduct an investigation where the
Yes.
officer has reasonable suspicion that a crime has been committed or there's an offense, and then that's just conducting an investigation.
Yeah, and you can conduct your investigation without that person giving you any help. They don't need to help you in your investigation. You can go and do all the investigating you want, but they're free to remain silent, which includes not giving their name until they've been lawfully arrested and asked by a peace officer. So, lawfully arrested, though, is being booked. Until you're being booked, the police officer can always claim that you were just detained and they can let you go.
You're lawfully arrested. That means you're physically taken into custody, and your liberties at that point.
No, that's legally arrested.
That's lawfully
Legal
arrested.
and lawful are two different things.
Oh my God.
No, these are not the same. Officer Fox, I'm not the one who splits hairs and makes these different definitions for these different words. This is the government that has done this. Okay, not me. I'm just the one who went and looked at the definitions and found out the differences. Okay, this is why we have things like that are very confusing when we have a code that says no person shall walk on, upon, or across a highway, right? And on the surface, it could appear very easily as though the improved shoulder is part of the highway. And then when you go and you look at the definition of a highway, you see that it says the area reserved to traffic. And then when you go and you look at the definition of improved shoulder, which why would you even look at that? Because nothing in the original code says anything about an improved shoulder, but the improved shoulder says the area restricted from vehicular traffic. So clearly they're opposing. So, this is why it takes me 3 months in order to get Lieutenant Rayleigh and Officer Walters going back and forth to find out that actually you can walk on the improved shoulder, which I already knew, right? Because I did the research. But I'm not the one who makes these different words and applies different definitions to them. That's why that book is that thick. Right? It's not my fault. I didn't do it. I'm not splitting hairs. It's not semantics. Right? It's the difference between rights and privileges. And it's a big difference. Right? These things are...
I just go by the law, man.
Well, but the thing is when you're out there, people don't always know. Like, ignorance of the law is no excuse. If you commit a crime and you say, I didn't know it was a crime, that's no excuse. But if you don't commit a crime, but you think you are, ignorance is an excuse. Right? So if you think that you can't walk on the highway, but you are, but you actually can.
No one says you can't.
But
I just would prefer somebody...
No, I've been kidnapped for it. We've discussed
somebody
this.
to not do that because it's dangerous.
Says you.
No, David. Let me get a little personal. I got hit by a car, minding my own business, not even walking on the road. Actually, it was kind of like on the very outside of an improved shoulder. A lady texting and driving physically struck me with her car.
Okay, it was dangerous for you on that day. I've been hit twice in crosswalks.
I'm just
the
saying,
only time I've ever been hit, twice in crosswalks.
I would advise people strongly to find another means of transportation.
Yeah, and I have a hard time with police officers advising people not to exercise their rights.
No, I'm not telling somebody to deter from their freedom. I'm just asking them to consider it.
Well, consider it. I would say, me right now talking to you, right, statistically speaking, the more I talk to an officer, the more my risk goes up of being shot. I mean, statistically speaking, of course.
Okay.
I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just, with statistics, what I'm getting at is statistics are not reality, officer. Does that make sense?
Press on.
Master by the name of Bates, smoking more than all 50 states combined. Yeah, right, I gotta stay on the grind. I got no money, so my weed's on my mind. I hit the club, but you know I can't dance. 7 and 7 in my cutoff chance. Tie that shirt in my long ass hair. What part of how I look makes you think I care?